Hello Pisces, and welcome to Pluto in a Strange Land. I finally arrived at chapter 12 of this journey, chapter 13 if you count the introductory warm-up video, but here we are, though you're not necessarily feeling it, I am beginning this reading having circumnavigated the entire zodiac, and that is perfectly suited to Pisces, which I think is a sign that thrives on being circumspect and looking at things from as many viewpoints as possible. It's one of the reasons why I love writing sun sign horoscopes, is because I am compelled, doing so, to look at everything 12 ways, and there are usually 12 ways to see something, and here we are at the 12th way, the sign Pisces. Just as a note about the here and now, I'm starting this chapter at 1:06 p.m. Eastern Time on the 15th, the Ides of March, and this is I'm doing this work during an exact conjunction of the Sun and Neptune in Pisces, which only happens once a year, and it only happens when Neptune's in Pisces, and with the Jupiter-Chiron conjunction in Aries still within 1 degree, and then Mercury is also in the picture. Mercury is right in the mix of the Sun-Neptune conjunction. And additionally, this is the first day of a kind of a new era after all of those Mars-Neptune squares that have been going on in one way or another for the last 4 or 5 months, which has been very challenging, and I will get to that. I've covered the Mars-Neptune square pattern in pretty much every reading. I think I left out a little piece of it for Aquarius, but anyway, I had a lot else to talk about in Aquarius, and quite a bit to talk about for Pisces. The two really important sign changes associated with the moment that we're in and with this reading are Pluto entering the 12th house, your 12th house. That's Aquarius. So it's very interesting to have Aquarius on the 12th house, I think, on same thing, because it's so microcosmic. It takes society and puts it into your mind. One of those brilliant oddities of the Pisces solar chart that says, I think, so much about who we are as people who are aware of the microcosm and the macrocosm, and the way in which we kind of have to make peace with carrying this world within us. And then the second really important one is Saturn entering Pisces. It's a really big deal, especially for Pisces. I think this is going to be a helpful influence. It will have its challenges, but I think that given all of these years of Neptune in Pisces, the feeling I have of Saturn in Pisces is a solid thing to climb up onto, so that you're not feeling like you're completely, lost at sea, which is be a perfectly good book title for what it's like to be alive in this phase of the 21st century. Finally, Mars retrograde is continuing to work itself out, and the retrograde spanned from October through early January, and then Mars station direct. And before, right at the beginning of the retrograde, there were 2 squares of Mars in Gemini, a very sensitive part of your chart, to Neptune in your sign. The third one was yesterday, and now Mars is going to make its way through the last 5 degrees of Pisces and into your 5th house. So that too is juicy, and I think is though I'm not one to look forward to things, I think something to look forward to. And then there's a few other bits and bobs here. So, but let's begin with the Mars retrograde process, because for a sign as sensitive as the most mutable of all the mutable signs, Pisces, to have a long retrograde of Mars in any mutable sign is challenging. But for you, this retrograde has taken place in a very inwardly centered, accurate to say, intimate part of your chart. So let's just get our first look at the solar chart here. Get the microphone where I've got good volume. And here's Pisces. That's us. And then house number 2, that's Aries. Lots going on there. We can talk about that. House number 3, that's Taurus. Lots going on there. We'll talk about that. And then house 4 is Gemini. And when I say things that Pisces like to have two places to live, or mainly that's about having Gemini on the 4th house. Some people need an extra place to go. Pisces is one of them. But what's been going on with Mars retrograde in the 4th house is you may have increasingly had the feeling that you have had nowhere to go that has felt safe during the past 7 months. Fortunately, that's working itself out. And the essence of that is that something about your security, your sense of grounding, your sense of safety inside your 4 walls has been challenged by this Mars retrograde. And that's true of Mars. Mars tends to bring friction and challenge. And when it's moving in reverse, that's very frustrating to a lot of people because Mars is a very forward-acting, assertive, even aggressive energy. And so to have Mars pulled back is tense, and it can be like, pulling back the bowstring on a bow, and then you let go and the arrow flies. But this process of pulling back has included this ongoing bog that you've been experiencing of Mars being retrograde against Neptune in your 1st house. And so with that, there have been all kinds of domestic scenarios that have emerged. There have been a lot about working out your emotional relationship to yourself. And then, apropos of Mars being retrograde, making a square to, which is what I mean when I say against Neptune in the 1st house, is that this is teaching you that you need to clean up your edges, your borders, and your boundaries, which is a difficult thing to do for Pisces or Pisces rising in any event, but it's especially difficult to do when you've got Neptune in the 1st house, which is, well, early in my astrological career, I must have told this joke a couple of times to Pisces, but I had a lot of clients, water's not falling on me. I'm doing the Pisces reading, but it would be appropriate if it rained inside. Okay, so diner-related business. There's apparently a water leak, which not that exciting. But anyway, speaking of leaks, early in my career reading charts, I had a run of clients, this has got to be like around 96, 97, who had Neptune in the 1st house. And because I probe people a little bit about like where do they live, not like what town, but like what's your house like, and maybe once or twice I said, does your front door lock? When I saw the Neptune transiting or placed in the 1st house, I began to think of Neptune in the 1st as the call a locksmith placement, because there were so many people whose locks didn't work or their door didn't latch who had a Neptune 1st house influence. And so I began to associate Neptune moving in the 1st house with challenges of making sure that your boundaries are in order, literally physical boundaries, literally the doorknob on your house. And one of the first things I do when I move into a new space of any kind is I change all the locks, and I make sure that all the locks lock and latch. It just seems like, well, it's my space. I'm going to put my kind of locks on the door, and I'm going to make sure that everything this includes closets, bedrooms, everything's got a latch. not to keep people out, but so that the door doesn't drift open, and so that we make a symbol when we close the door. And every night before I go to bed, I do something I learned from my friend Jean Treadway's cat. She's in Santa Fe, which is to do a perimeter check. I walk through my space. I make sure that all the doors and the windows are properly locked. The stove is off. I go down to the office. I make sure the heat's off and that the doors are locked properly. I clear the floors of anything that might get in the way in the event of a rapid exit and call it a day.